Hey everyone, welcome back to the Creative Juice podcast. This episode is a little different. Because of some traveling and scheduling conflicts, I'm recording solo today, but don't worry, I got some amazing guests lined up for the future episodes. This week, I polled the community and asked what questions you wanted me to tackle. You delivered some great topics and I dive into some things like overcoming imposter syndrome, strategies for building an engaging UEFN community beyond just chasing virality, tips on launching new game ideas, and even how my journey went from the oil field to becoming a full-time creator. We're also getting personal, talking about drive and passion, the importance of planning versus jumping in, and what truly is worth your time and what is just noise. Even though it's just me on the mic, I think there's tons of valuable insight in this one. Hope you find something useful to carry with you. Let's get started. So the first question is from Pi=3. And he asked, did you always plan to have a career in game development industry? If not, what was the critical point in your life that led you to pursue this full time? That is a great question. I think I've kind of alluded to this in other videos before, but I'd love to talk about it again. So, I didn't really plan on it being a career at first. Definitely not in a serious or realistic way. Like a lot of people, I always loved games and creating things, but the idea of actually working in game development felt pretty far off, I would say, especially growing up when the path into the industry seemed gated behind degrees and experiences most people didn't have access to. What made it real for me was the traction I started seeing once I began sharing my games and tutorials in Fortnite Creative. The feedback, the play counts, the millions of views on my content, it was all organic and it showed me there was real opportunity here if I kept going. At the time, I was still working in the oil field, 80 hours a week for 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. I had great benefits, a stable job, but it was kind of tough on my family, to be honest. So I started using that time off to double down on building, learning, and making content. Eventually, I launched my studio, Catalyst Studios, and that's when things started to click. Once I saw I could match or even replace my income, not just through content, but through publishing and building games, I knew I had a real shot. I didn't jump immediately. I waited until I felt financially secure. I wanted to be smart about this, but honestly, the truth is I knew I had to go for it. If I didn't, I'd always wonder what could have happened. Taking the leap was probably one of the best decisions I ever made. And, I'm very happy and very lucky how things worked out. So I think that was a great first question, and definitely it's good to think about the past sometimes, how far things have come since then. I've taken the leap almost 4 years ago now to do this. It was super scary, and by no means am I telling anyone they should just quit and do it. It took a lot of time for me to come to that decision. Like I mentioned, I had a lot of ducks in a row, and it was a decision I made with my wife, and we made, and it made sense. And I think it was a great decision. The next question is from Thomas Jank. He asked, "Why this and not something else?" This probably sounds kind of cheesy, but honestly, I think it was fate or something like that. I always loved making things. I was addicted to Legos and erector sets as a kid. Also video games, of course. I remember I messed around in Unreal Tournament in that editor back on the PS2. But growing up, game development never felt like a real option. Back then, gaming was still seen as something that would rot your brain, not really a career path. There wasn't much money in it either, or at least not in a way that seemed reachable. And to break into the industry, you needed a degree, experience, and connections. And I didn't have any of that. But Fortnite Creative changed all of that, I think, for me. I know some people hate building through a character, which in Fortnite Creative 1.0, you had a character you built with. But for me, it actually made things like click, I think. It helped me understand space, movement, and layout in a way that just felt natural. Plus, it was built in a game I'd already been playing for years, so there was no learning curve in terms of context. Ironically, when Creative first got announced, I thought it was dumb, and I thought it may fail, to be honest, which is hilarious now that I think about it. But I did shortly figure out its potential. I started using it to build aim drills just to improve my own gameplay, but somewhere along the way, it just became addicting. And when I saw my YouTube channel start to blow up, millions of views on my games and tutorials, I realized this was more than just a hobby. At the time, I was working remotely in Alaska with terrible internet. I had to pay $80 for 2 weeks of internet, and I think it was 4 megabytes up and half a megabyte down. I had to pay for that. And I couldn't even really play Fortnite on it. But I could build in Creative. So I did, like every spare minute I had. This sounds corny, but it like scratched an itch that nothing else did at the time. I just fell in love with Fortnite Creative. I still am in love. It's the first thing I actually think about when I wake up still. Even after all the games I've built and all the content I've made, I still am just excited about opening up Creative and trying new things. I went all in, like I said in the previous question, and I am still all in. I truly believe we are early. And I really do believe that this space is going to grow and thrive, and it will be one of the top places in the metaverse. The next question is from Rain Manix99. Where do you get your drive and passion from? This is a great question, and honestly, I think it's actually a complicated one. I'll try to answer it the best I can. I think it started with my parents and sports. I grew up playing high-level team sports and learned early how powerful consistency and work ethic can be if you want to be great at something. My parents were blue collar and really never missed a day of work. They never complained. They never made excuses. We lived in a trailer until I was 11. I don't think I've publicly said that before. They didn't have much, but I never really noticed it because they always showed up and gave their best. I'm really lucky and fortunate to have had them as an example, to be honest. That mindset kind of stuck with me. Today, my drive is probably my wife and kids. I want to be a role model for them the way my parents were for me. They're my fuel now. And I've had a lot of hobbies over the years. I get into something for a bit, then move on. But with Fortnite Creative and content, it's different. I'm still excited to wake up and work on new ideas. I want to improve. That's how I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Because at the end of the day, there are a ton of people chasing the same thing, and many of them don't have the responsibilities I do or you do. If you're not genuinely passionate about what you're doing, it's easy to burn out or quit when things get tough. You got to love what you do. Just got to keep that fire lit. That's what keeps me going. That was a great question. And you know, I know a lot of us feel stuck sometimes, or I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, sometimes I don't have drive or passion. Sometimes I do want to be lazy. But just for me to like feel happy. And I don't know if maybe I need to see someone about this. But like I have to get something done. I have to, that could be working out. That could be taking care of chores. That could be making a piece of content. That could be learning a new thing. But like there's something inside of me that if I don't complete something in that day, it just like I don't want to say I'm not happy. I'm happy, but it's just like there's I just don't feel accomplished, or I feel like I'm behind, or I guess anxious, really. But yeah, great question. The next question is from Broken USB. Imposter syndrome. How do you overcome it? This is such a good question, and honestly, I don't know if it ever fully goes away, but for me, I think you can quiet it. So like I said, like for me, imposter syndrome usually shows up when I start comparing myself to others or letting negative thoughts spiral. The best way I've found to manage it is just by showing up every day and doing my best. If I fail, I treat it as a lesson, not a reflection of who I am. I've been in rooms with some of the biggest names in the industry, and I can tell you most of them are just regular people. A lot of them got where they are because of timing, opportunity, or pure persistence. Very few actually felt ready when they started. At the end of the day, you're only competing with yourself. It doesn't matter what other people think. What matters is that you're pushing forward, learning, and showing up even when it's hard. My favorite quote, I think I've said this on this podcast already, probably too many times. The difference between successful people is they never give up. That has always stuck with me. And when imposter syndrome creeps in, I just remind myself, just keep going. That's what I think matters the most. I struggle with it. I'm not going to lie about that. I think a lot of people do. I think probably everyone does. I remember when I was giving the talk at Unreal Fest, and it was an hour-long talk. I've never done a talk that long before. I was super nervous. I prepared so hard. I was spending, for the last month or two up to it, I was spending over 2 hours for every night practicing it. And I could have recited it from memory, and I still felt like I wasn't good enough, or I shouldn't be here, or this, people are gonna like that. All these thoughts came into my brain. It went insanely well. I mean, lots of people showed up. I had people laughing. I had people clapping. I had people come up and tell me they learned lots of things. And if I would have let, I'm that imposter syndrome creep in and tell myself I can't do that or not good enough, I would not have experienced that. And I think just it goes in with everything, just like releasing your game, releasing content. It's all like, people are going to like it or this or that. And honestly, just, it's so hard, but like, who cares? Who cares? They're not doing it. Well, some of them may be doing it. And I guarantee the people who are doing it at high level would never say anything bad or come down on you or make fun of you or anything. It's usually the people that are insecure, or people that are, know they should be doing those things and aren't. So just keep that in mind. It is a very real, and I don't know if imposter syndrome ever goes away. But just keep at it. Don't let it stop you. And even if you do have a bad post, a bad talk, you're still going to learn something. You're still going to, keep going up them steps, and eventually you'll get over the top. The next question is from All Time Dark Pit. If you have a brand new gameplay idea, should you release a light demo and improve it over time, even if it means players could finish the map in a few hours or minutes? Or should you go all in and do your best, even if we don't know how well it will do? Great question. I think a lot of people struggle with this. I'll try my best to answer this. But it really just depends on the idea and your goals. I don't think there's no single right answer, but from what I've seen in the space, I lean towards starting with a strong MVP, a minimal viable product, something that shows off the core gameplay loop and lets you test whether it's actually fun and worth building or iterating on. Now, that doesn't mean launching something unfinished or empty. It still has to deliver a good experience and give a player a reason to stick around, because now more than ever, early engagement and retention really does matter. You can learn so much from how people interact with your game early on. I've seen creators go all in and find huge success. I've even seen small ideas take off and evolve into something massive. If your gameplay loop is strong, it'll hold attention and give you time to keep improving. So my advice would be stay focused, build the first run, and be ready to evolve it if the foundation clicks with players. I hope that answers your question, but definitely I think putting out an MVP, not investing a huge amount of time, seeing how it does, see how players interact. Even if it does nothing, that's fine, but hopefully there's something you can take or learn from it, something that maybe did work, and reiterate and try again. I published 50 to 100 games. I was at it for 2 years before one of my games really took off. So it takes time. I think UEFN is just now over 2 years old, right? So it can take time, but fail often, and just improve, be persistent, study, take time to play games, see what's working, and improve, reiterate on those ideas, and maybe you'll get a massive hit. The next question is from Ghost UEP. Do you think that UEFN games tend to perform better if they are simpler? For example, a low poly or basic geometry environment with popping colors versus a more complex environment with textures, fog, reflections, etc. And overall, what matters most for environments in general? That's a great question. First off, I'm not actually sure if you're meaning device performance or discovery performance, so I'll cover both. For device performance, yeah, simpler environments definitely help. Clean geometry, low poly art style, bright colors. That all reduces stress on hardware, especially for PvP or fast-paced modes. Just look at maps like the Pit or Red vs. Blue. They run flawless across all devices, which I believe is a big reason they've stayed relevant for so long. Most competitive players are actually using performance mode anyway, so even if you build some crazy high fidelity environment, it's just getting flattened by their settings, again depending on what genre you are trying to build. But honestly, like I was mentioning, like at that point, you're just adding extra memory and stress to the game without getting anything back visually, right? So now in terms of how a game performs in discovery, I think simplicity actually helps a lot here as well. If you scroll through discovery, most of the top performing games use basic geometry, bold shapes, easy to read environments, and clean layouts. It makes it easier for players to understand, I think, what's going on right away. It's also worth looking at like Roblox, where the most popular games are almost all low poly or I guess blocky by design. Players over there actually prefer that aesthetic. It feels accessible, runs very well on every device, and helps keep focus, I guess, on the gameplay, I think. So, and maybe we're seeing some of that trend carry over into UEFN, even though, it's always kind of been around for Fortnite Creative. So, that being said, complex environments, I think, still have their place here. At least I hope in the future they will definitely have their place and be more predominant. But things like solo experiences, think of like the horror genre, right? Where fog, lighting, reflections, and sound design can make a huge impact. If your goal is immersion, the extra details do matter, but it still needs to serve the experience, not just be, I guess, flashy for the sake of it. So, what matters most about environments overall? Clarity and purpose. Your environment should support the gameplay, not distract from it. If it's a PvP, players need visibility and clean lines. If it's a story or vibe heavy, you want mood, lighting, and details that pull people in. Simple or complex, it should all serve the experience, right? So I hope that answered your question. But yeah, that's kind of what I believe. So this next question is from Mackenzie Jackson. He asked, what strategies have you found most effective for fostering a loyal, engaging community in UEFN beyond just virality? Great question. For me, the biggest thing is consistency. Just showing up every day, posting regularly, and just not overthinking it. Just be present. It's easy to focus on virality. All of that. It's just usually a short burst when you get that. If you want people to stick around, they need to see you and know that you're actually in it. I guess that's what I believe. So when you're showing up every day, whether you're posting something big, small, finished, or in progress, I think all of that just builds trust for your audience. From there, it's about consistently providing value. So that could mean sharing updates on Fortnite, giving quick breakdowns on new devices, posting cool stats about engagement or performance, or just sharing things like, how you design thumbnails, devlogs, sort all those things. When your audience can learn something from you, even in small ways, they start to come back, not just for entertainment, but because they know you're giving them something useful. And lastly, I think people connect to the journey. When you're real about what you're building, what's working and what's not, it makes everything more relatable, I guess. So especially now, with so much polished content and AI generated noise, people want something that feels, I think, genuine. This is kind of my take on it. So I guess in to sum this up in short, show up, bring value, be real, and just do it consistently. I think that's how you build a community. So the next question is from Cakes FN Maps. They ask, what is the hardest thing about being a creator as in UEFN, game design, etc.? Great question. I've actually asked this on my socials, and the most common answer, surprisingly, maybe, is social media, actually. Not building a game, not learning verse, it's promoting your game. I always say this, and it's maybe cheesy, but you can build the best game in the world, but if no one knows about it, it doesn't matter. Learning the tools, mastering UEFN, understanding performance, none of that is easy. Don't get me wrong, but I believe it's all learnable for sure. But I think what stops most people is getting their game seen. A lot of creators overthink content. I get it. It feels overwhelming. But the truth is, a big reason some creators break through is because they've studied how social media works. They know how to spot trends early and build around them, create viral thumbnails and short clips, use data and analytics to improve, collaborate with others to boost reach, make content that drives clicks and plays, add smart call to actions in their games like hidden codes, secrets, and weapons. And honestly, they just show up consistently. That's a theme in probably this podcast. That's consistency. It's not just having a big audience. They built that audience by understanding how to play the game behind the game. In my talk from Unreal Fest, I dive into this even more. I'll drop the link in the comments if you want a deeper insight on growing your reach and building an audience the right way. And if you're just getting started, just don't overthink it. Okay, just post daily, share your devlogs, talk about what's happening in the space, upload short form clips of your game to every platform, study what's working and why certain games suddenly spike, why some fall off. There's almost always a social media trail behind it, right? A recent example, I believe, I just did a deep dive on how Unk's game went viral, one of his games. He took a very obvious inspiration from a top performing map. And while that sparked a lot of controversy, I don't want to get into that here, but the way he promoted it is worth studying. If you're curious how that kind of visibility happens, you can check that video out. I'll put a link in the description. So yeah, I think the hardest part isn't the tools, which they are difficult. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's attention, and you've got to earn that daily. The next question is from Let Kyle. What's the biggest waste of time? Don't do or do less. And then what's the biggest worth of time? Do or do more? That was an interesting question, or very worded interestingly, I should say. But I think I got a good answer for this. So the biggest waste of time is focusing on negativity, comparing yourself to others, and hanging around people who drain your energy. It's easy to get caught up in blame, whether it's Epic, the algorithm, or other creators. I used to do that early on as well, to be honest, but none of it really helped me grow. At the end of the day, your success comes down to one thing: what you are doing with the things you can control. Are you paying attention to trends? Are you studying the maps that are actually working? Are you thinking about your gameplay loop, your CTAs, your social media strategies, your retention? Epic literally released a full article on what metrics discovery looks at, and now we can even see live KPIs across other maps. That's not noise, that's free research, and it's where your time should go. Also, I believe this is a big one. Watch who you surround yourself with. If you're spending time with people who consistently complain, take shots at others, or try to bring creators down, ask yourself what they're doing when you're not around. That energy seeps into your mindset and holds you back. You need to surround yourself with people who give honest feedback, want to see you win, and aren't just in it for themselves. Now, the biggest worth of your time, this is hard. This is really hard, but I'll try to answer it. So, it's playing and analyzing games, not just in Fortnite, in Roblox and AAA titles. Learn what makes those experiences work. Studying what trending and why it's working. Break down thumbnails, headlines, pacing, retention loops. Learning a new skill or doubling down on what you're good at. And if you're not good at something, trade skills, right? Work with people who complement what you do or what you're good at. If you are good at environments, then find someone who's good at verse, and maybe you guys can collab, right? Another one is like getting better at socials, posting consistently, understanding platforms, studying virality. It's one of the most underrated skills a creator can learn. I'm probably beating a dead horse on this episode about social media. But at the end of the day, creators who focus on what they can control and get better every week, those are the ones who will stick around and win long term. I hope that answered your question, Kyle. Definitely wasn't easy. All right, this question is from Mobile Scrap. What advice do you wish someone gave you before starting content creation? And what's the best way to advertise your game? This is a good one. This is a good one. Let me think for a second. What I wish someone told me. I guess I just wish someone told me to just start. And just stop worrying about perfection, really. When I first got into content, I overthought everything. I wanted the the perfect edit, the perfect script, the perfect thumbnail. And honestly, that just slowed me down. The truth is, content creation is all about momentum. You learn by doing, you get better by posting. Similar to posting, creating your games. Also, no one really talks about how much of content creation is figuring out what actually connects, right? It's not just about uploading clips. It's about understanding your audience, paying attention to watch time, thumbnails, pacing, and adapting, right? I wish I had found that earlier. I guess I wish I had focused on all of that way earlier, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Now, as for advertising your game, I kind of mentioned some of it, I think, in this podcast, but, content is best form of marketing. It really is, hands down. You should be posting short clips of your games across every platform. YouTube Shorts, TikTok, X, Reels. I've seen success on Snapchat even. So, you should be posting there. But it's not enough to just post gameplay, right? You need a hook. Why should someone care? Well, what's the twist, the surprise, the reason they should click or play? How can you have them watch that video and drive traffic to your game? Now, on top of all of that, you need to build in game CTAs, call to actions like hidden secrets, codes, surprises that make people want to share the clip as well, and drive traffic to your game. When you combine a sticky game loop with social moments and consistent content, that's when it really takes off, I feel. So I guess above all, just show up every day. Also, consistency really matters. So not everything will go viral, and that's fine. But if you keep showing up, your audience and your games will grow. And sometimes that can take a year or two. It can take a while of trying. But I guarantee if you just try and not, every day would be great, but, a few times a week, if you just keep a consistent cadence, you will see growth, you will improve, and you will, over time, you will see what works. You can look at my first videos I made on YouTube. They're garbage. They are so bad. They're embarrassing. But I kept trying. I kept trying until I found what works. It took me years. It took me years on YouTube before it kind of took off. And I believe all that trying and suffering, air quotes, just made sure I was prepared and ready for when my videos did take off. That is a lot of things I've seen before, is where you have a video that does take off early on. You're like, oh, this is great, but you're not prepared for it. You're really not. You don't know why it took off. You don't know how to keep that momentum going. You don't know how to, make similar content to that, to keep your audience, how to sprinkle in, now your audience is used to that content. So how do you expand, sprinkling different content? There's lots of different approaches that go into it, but all of that is just learned by trial and error. Same with kind of game development. So hopefully that answered your question. All right. The last question of this podcast is from Big Hearted Stud. And do you plan or make your first move? Great question. I've actually tried both, and I think planning always wins, to be honest. It doesn't mean over planning or getting stuck in analysis mode, I guess, but having a clear direction makes everything smoother, I guess. Save time, avoid burnout, and honestly, the end result is just better. In the last episode of Creative Juice with Enrique, the CEO of TerraVision and creator of Havoc Hotel, they talked about this actually as well. You go watch that actually. He said the same thing though. Planning is what allows creativity to thrive and not limit it. And I've seen that play out in my own projects over and over. Having a plan doesn't mean you can't pivot, of course. It just gives you a strong foundation, right, to build from. So I guess that's my answer. It's a short one, but yeah, planning definitely helps. Sometimes though, I would stop my game I was creating at the time, And I would just go tinker. I'd mess around with other, just have fun with no plan. I think there is some, some ideas can spark from just doing that as well. So, take this with a grain of salt, but overall, definitely planning about it. All right, that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and leave a comment and drop a rating. It really helps the podcast grow and reach more creators. Next episode is going to be a big one. My guest has worked on some massive projects with Epic, Lego, and more. I'm hyped for that one, so don't miss it. I'll be back in a fortnight, 2 weeks. Thanks for watching, and as always, don't hate, create.